Good evening. Good evening. Oh, I knew you were there. I knew you were there. Good evening and welcome to South Fulton, a city on the rise. I'm your host and proud fellow resident of the city of South Fulton, Donna Lowry. I am the host of Lawmakers on Georgia Public Broadcasting and for years worked at 11 Alive in all of that time living in this area, so I love it. 5 years ago, we set out on a journey. Our goal was simple: to build a unique city that embodied our collective vision and gave rise to the values we held and still hold dear. Cityhood signaled the dawn of a new era for our special corner of South Fulton. It also launched a drive to make the city of South Fulton the crown jewel of the South Side. At times, the journey has been tough. It is always when we're blazing a new path that things can get tough. Even with those bumps in the road, we have achieved so much, and we've done it together. Think about it for a moment. We've built a city from the ground up, and that's no easy task. We've established the crucial role of providing core services. Public safety, including police and fire departments, led today by two of the best chiefs the area has ever seen. That deserves applause. Yes. But there's more. Parks and recreation and cultural affairs with a network of parks, community centers, sports facilities, and one of Southside's premier art centers. Public works, community development, code enforcement, the list goes on. We've worked hand in hand with Fulton County on a variety of shared services. We've supported the tireless efforts of the Fulton County School Board to ensure our children have the best foundation possible on which to build their futures. And those are just the headlines. But we do have more concrete stuff. What have we done that's concrete? In 5 short years, we have created a Blighted Properties Fund to transform those properties and give them a new lease on life. Established an urban redevelopment agency with millions of dollars devoted to improving our facilities and amenities. Invested more than $3 million in new fire engines, police vehicles, and the state's first dual-purpose K-9 unit, all of which support more than 200 new police and firefighter jobs. And by the way, if you know someone who would like to serve the city in those departments, we're hiring. We've opened 3 mini police precincts, cut services, and cut serious crimes by more than 40%, while lowering fire response times by 30 seconds. We've created a park ranger program to ensure resident safety at our parks, negotiated the transfer of this wonderful facility we're sitting in tonight, as well as the South Fulton Arts Center, and we continue to work on acquiring Wolf Creek Amphitheater. We've launched the Clean City Crew to fight litter in our neighborhoods and on our roadsides. Invested $16 million to pave 60 roads in our neighborhoods in the last couple of years. My neighborhood just recently. Negotiated our way through an unprecedented pandemic, distributing more than $15 million of federal funds through programs that include rent and mortgage assistance, business grants, needed infrastructure improvements, and hazard pay for those on the front lines. It's a lot, and we've done that. Let's give ourselves a round of applause for all of that. It's a lot. There's more. Tonight, we get a chance to celebrate those triumphs. We also look forward to a bright future. We'll debut a new video allowing those who bonded together to found the city, giving them the chance to share the story in their own words. We will debut that video, and after that, we'll have an informative and enlightening and possibly entertaining conversation with some of those people during a panel discussion right here on the stage. And we've also got a few other surprises as we look to the future. So sit back, those of you here, those of you who are watching online, and enjoy the evening as we celebrate our city, the city of South Fulton, a city on the rise. Now, our mayor, Khalid Camus, could not be here tonight to offer his welcome in person. He's attending a conference in Washington with other mayors from across the country, learning the latest in whatever mayorisms there are that people have to learn, those kind of duties for mayors. It's a tough job. Somebody has to do it. He didn't forget us, though. And through the magic of video recording before he left for the nation's capital, he left a brief welcome. Mr. Mayor, take it away.
Good evening. My name is Khalid, and I am the mayor of South Fulton, Georgia. Welcome to the first night of our 5th anniversary celebration. At nearly 100 square miles, stretching from the banks of the Chattahoochee River to the borders of Cobb, Clayton, and Fayette counties, South Fulton is Atlanta's new Twin City. Our city was founded in the spirit of Kujichagulia, self-determination, to take control not only of our tax dollars, but of our destiny. Tonight, you will hear stories from some of our city's founders. I hope that they inspire each and every one of you to get more involved in our city and help us write the next chapters of our history. You can start simply by returning here to the Southwest Art Center for our City Council meetings, which happen 4th Tuesdays at 4 p.m., or by joining me online in a new town hall series I am launching May 1st, entitled Courageous Conversations. You can find out about all of these events and more by visiting our city's website, cityofsouthfultonga.gov, or by following us on social media at COSFGA. I look forward to seeing all of you for our 5th anniversary finale this Saturday. South Fulton, forever.
Thank you, Mayor. And our mayor, we appreciate your being here with us, even though it's by video, and we wish him a safe trip back. As we celebrate a city that has grown over its first 5 years, it's important to look back and remember the people who got us here. They are the giants on whose shoulders we stand. Let's start with the debut of a new video produced by the city's Department of Communications and External Affairs. After its first showing here tonight, a series of videos will be featured in different areas. You'll be able to find it on the YouTube page and for the city of South Fulton and on digital channels throughout the year. So right now, sit back and see our 5-year anniversary video.
The 2 key legislators that brought this city into fruition was Roger Bruce on the House side and then Senator Donzella James on the Senate side.
The city was created because it was born out of a need, so to speak. But we had a senator that created a bunch of different tax districts. They thought that the north side of the county was subsidizing the south side of the county. So his solution to that was to create all of these tax districts all over the county. And the way the law was written was that all tax dollars collected in those areas had to stay in those areas. which would have prevented money from the north side coming to the south side. Turns out the south side was actually subsidizing the north side, by the way.
Then I realized that we had some problems with Fulton County. Everything went to the north, all of the money, all of the great ideas, all the good economic development, but we had more undeveloped land than anyone. So, see, something is wrong with this picture. We started building, and my husband said, we need to detach from Fulton County proper, unless we get some commissioners who will vote to bring things south too and have equitable distribution of our tax dollars.
We were paying taxes, but we didn't get the representation. There was one commissioner at the time that lived in our footprint.
And the fact that we would have county commissioners on the north side of the county who was voting on things on the south side of the county that might be adverse to what the people in the south side of the county wanted.
What ended up happening is that on the north side, all of those unincorporated tax districts started saying, well, we might as well have our own city. The area in South Fulton was unincorporated. And what ended up happening is that all those existing cities started picking off pieces of it, but they only picked off the pieces that they felt would help them. So it was decided, well, let's take all of the area that's left and create a city of South Fulton.
Well, I would go down to the Capitol, and I worked closely with Representative Roger Bruce, Representative Deborah Bazemore, Senator James, making sure that the bill got passed. I remember the first time the bill died, and it was devastating.
Defeated 3 times in the General Assembly. The bill was introduced in 2013 session. And we are a city because of House Bill 514. Some people would say it took us 10 years to become a city. Well, there was another cityhood bill, and it did go to the people, and the people said no.
People that did not want the city, I don't think they had a good understanding of what would happen if we did not become a city.
I can remember, during the cityhood movement, as many people there were that were passionate to create the city, there were just as many people who were adamantly opposed to having the city created.
The first attempt at cityhood I was not for. And I made that very, very clear, because as their commissioner, because I didn't think that we were financially ready at that time, and I didn't see the type of leadership that was going to be able to take the city.
We got information and was told by the 2 mayors that are neighbors of ours, that if we were not successful this time in becoming a city, that they would get more of the land that we had. And they were taking the prime areas, not just any piece, not just a neighborhood. They wanted like Coca-Cola in different areas, and then they were going to come down on National, where we have a lot of businesses down there, and take that area, because you have College Park right there, that was one, and then you had Union City. So, I mean, they were within their right, but I think our constituents, our citizens did not understand, because if that continued to happen, then we would be left with hardly anything, and we would not be able to sustain ourselves as independent people or a city. Down at the Gold Dome, we had Atlanta. That's who fought us from the beginning to the end.
They wanted a lot more than what they have now. And they fought us for a while. In fact, they were the same ones who were fighting for us not to even become a city, because they wanted to annex the city of South Fulton into Atlanta. If we wanted to live in Atlanta, we would have moved in Atlanta. Yeah, so most of us were like, no way. Because not just Fulton County sending things to the north side, but Atlanta was notorious for doing the same thing.
Some of the challenges we faced were people were just afraid. People just, they were comfortable with being part of unincorporated South Fulton. They didn't understand the dynamics of what would happen if those schools in the area were closed in the city of Atlanta. said that if we annex any of that area, we're going to close the schools because we don't need them. Our schools are underpopulated already, and we'll just, bus those kids from South Fulton into existing City of Atlanta schools. And you definitely don't want that to happen.
And one of the things that was looming was the threat of being annexed into the City of Atlanta. And for many parents, they were very concerned that it was going to impact our local schools and cause them to be shut down. So I was involved with the formation of a group called Protecting Our Communities and Schools Against Annexation. And we were very involved with educating the community about the impact annexation was going to have in terms of our schools, our neighborhood schools. And we were at risk potentially of having 2 elementary and a middle school empty in our neighborhood if we would have been annexed into Atlanta.
Any monies that would have been coming to those schools would have gone someplace else. We would have lost that. We would have lost property taxes also. Students did not want to go to the City of Atlanta. The parents were not interested in going. So we had to work with I worked with the legislators, I worked with the individuals who were really pushing for the city.
As a citizen, as a parent, as a resident, I want to make sure that our schools are supported. And here at the state level, I'm very involved in making sure that the schools have the funding that they need, that the teachers get the pay raises that they need.
And so it was people like Kim Dove and Tony Phillips. They were a part of our group Protecting Our Communities and Schools Against Annexation. And we realized we were going to continue to have that fight unless we incorporated.
However, in the second time, I jumped in hands and feet because I saw a different kind of a strategy. People in the community were meeting, and they were producing white papers. They got themselves in committees of public safety and stuff of that nature, and they came back with something that was reasonable and responsive.
But the last time when we went to the court up there, I never will forget a young man by the name of Rayford Johnson. He called me and he said, Demeter, you got to get up and get down to the Capitol. They're going to bring the bill back up. And so when they brought the bill back up, it was in the last hour that a young lady by the name of Camilla Moore had went to the Republicans and said this bill needed to be signed. So could you imagine from a bill that's failing, that a bill that just come back alive, and then that's when we call it the Lazarus bill, because it came back from the dead.
It took Republicans and it took Democrats. It took this. We are a city because of bipartisan support.
In the Capitol, when that vote took place, I cried. I was ecstatic. I knew then that we had a chance.
I was exhilarated. I was just overwhelmed with the fact that we made it. We've gotten to step 1 or 2.
And at that time, I believe we were the 3rd largest city in Fulton County. That's doing something. That's amazing. It took a lot of people to get this bill across and to make this city what it is right now today.
But I can tell you, I started with an organization called South Fulton United, and that was the mother group, you could say, that helped to drive the movement to create the city.
We had a number of people. We worked closely with Representative Roger Bruce to make sure we divided up the city into 7 districts. And our group was the one that had the feasibility study done. And we sat down with those at the college and told us, you are more than feasible, whether you get Fulton Industrial or not. And when we had those districts broken up, we assigned 2 people to each district that lived there, and we had meetings in those districts to make sure the constituents knew exactly why we were doing what we did and how it would benefit them.
People fear the unknown, and I get that. So we had to educate people, we had to make sure they understood the benefits of cityhood, the benefits of local government, the benefits of controlling your own zoning, and all the other pieces of it. You know, it's just, the biggest challenge was just educating people and getting them to understand all of the things that could happen if we didn't do it, and all of the wonderful things that could happen if we did do it.
First and foremost, we were educating the citizens, because the first question everybody was asking was, do we have the money? So a huge part of education was getting people to understand that we were already paying into what was called a special service district. Our tax money was going into a fund, and the fund that our tax money was going into was supposed to be servicing our area. But when we did the research, we come to find out that the money that we were paying in taxes was going to the northern part of the county, and the people weren't receiving nearly the services that they were literally paying for.
We were not getting the type of services that you would get in a typical municipality. And again, with 108 population per the 2020 census, we are the largest city on the south side. And so we were there roughly 100,000 people without any local government, with lack of certain basic services, or they're not being, you know, timely or where they need to be. And so that's why we had to create the city of South Fulton.
Because it was an extremely progressive thing for local citizens to come together and understand what it meant to have local control over your tax dollars. That's huge, to be able to make your own decisions about what goes on in your neighborhoods in terms of your safety, your prosperity, your children. If you have a local government that I can drive 5-10 minutes to get to, as opposed to a county government who was servicing, I don't know, 5-6 million people maybe, that gives you much greater access and much greater opportunity to get things done that you need in your neighborhood or on your street or in your community.
So there were 5 community groups involved. Every community group had their season, and the state legislators worked with all of the community groups, and the sole call was to bring us here to this day, the city of South Fulton.
The team that put it together, great job. I couldn't help but think as I was watching it of that line from Hamilton, who tells your story? They're telling our story, and we're gonna hear more of our story from the people who are a part of it. It's good to think back on a lot of that. I know some of you remember, I certainly do, the different challenges that happen. So we are a city on the rise indeed, and what a great start for those in the video. They gave us all a great start for a city. Some of those visionaries are here tonight to help us take an expanded look at what it took to get this city started. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming them to the stage. With us tonight are District 3 Councilwoman Helen Willis, a relentless champion of cityhood. District 4 Councilman J.C. Sebastian, who worked then as a resident and now serves as a council member to make South Fulton the best it can be. State Senator Donzella James, whose passion for our city and tireless work under the Gold Dome on our behalf never wavers. State Representative Roger Bruce, who carried key legislation through the State House and who still carries our torch there. Demita Chapman, whose endless energy and enthusiasm and delicious food often kept the process going. Kevin Grimes, one of the people who was most committed to doing whatever was necessary to maintain momentum. Camilla Moore, a very strong behind-the-scenes player with a great impact. And school board member Kimberly Dove, whose passion for our youth and schools made sure education was at the forefront of the cityhood effort. Please welcome all of them. I want to make sure everybody is seated. Did we get a seat for everybody? If we don't, that's okay. I'm supposed to sit in the middle, but I can stand here if you guys need another seat. Okay. All righty. Good to see all of you. This is exciting. I'm glad to have you all here. You are the ones telling the story, and some of you I get to see down at the Capitol. So I'm happy to see that you are on our side, because you guys are workers. So welcome to each of you. Thank you for being here tonight with us and for your tireless work for our efforts. So I've got one question for all of you. I'm going to go back and forth like this, okay? Not ignoring you with my back to you, okay? Each of you here tonight comes from a different background and set of experiences. Was that diversity important to the process of becoming a city? And if so, how? And let's start with you, Councilwoman Willis. What do you think?
Yes, it was diversity, and diversity was important because some of us had accounting experience, some of us had analytical experience, some of us had political experience. There were people who understood the General Assembly, the legislators. We would not be here without the legislators because it had to go. That was the first step, along with the feasibility study. The community outreach was very important because the community, the community connected with the community, and so yes, that was very important. All of us in our diverse backgrounds. I have a BA in accounting, a master's in financial accounting. I was making six figures. I had no desire to become a public servant. But I was raised in Savannah, Georgia, and I was raised around a lot of public servants and raised by an educator, and was always taught to serve my community. So at the end of the day, I ended up doing what I was raised to do.
And we're glad you did. Let's move on to the other side. Demita Chapman, tell me about your feelings about the diversity part of it.
First, I love the diversity. Coming to Georgia, where it was just about all black folks, living out in California, where we had all different nationalities. So I love the way that took place. And doing that, we were just like a family. We didn't care who you were, what color you were. We were a family during that time. We ate together. We argued. But when we left that house, we were still on one accord and still friends. So it was just electrifying.
Yeah, and I hear you brought the food, so.
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, the eating place was my house. And I would cook dinner. We had dinner maybe twice a month. And this particular dinner, Representative Roger Bruce sat in the big chair. And he said, "I don't want no black-eyed peas." And we had everything now. But I said, okay, just taste it now. So I think Bill Edwards told him to taste it. And I think Miss Gilliard was there. Well, he ate. And he left. He knocked back on the door. He said, "My wife want a plate, but can I have one too?" So it was just a family. And that's what I loved about it. We were all on one accord.
I have to, you've got to pass the microphone to him. because we won't get you to talk about that. But the diversity was important to you too, right?
Absolutely. I don't think we could have put this together without the diversity. There were people that, as was mentioned, from all the different branches of government, people from the community, and I remember this was actually our second attempt at this. And the first attempt, I think, didn't go through because we didn't have the diversity. We didn't have all of the things that were needed to make this work. And when they came and wanted to talk about putting the city together the second time, my hair was a different color. And I said, I don't know if I want to go through all of that again until we make sure that people really want it. And that's how we came up with the 7 districts. It was totally arbitrary. We just said, how many people are in the area that we're talking about? How many people do we want each to serve? We just divided it, and we came up with 7. And the instructions were, go out to these 7 districts and find people in every single one of them that say they want this to happen. And if you can't come back to me with people from every one of them, we're not going to do it. And that's what happened. And they went out, and then the decision was made that Donzella and myself would handle things at the Capitol to make sure that this bill went through and passed, and that you guys would work in the community to make sure that they were educated and understood what was going on.
Yeah. Now, so I've got to go to you, Senator James, on this. So we have to get you the microphone. So how important was having a diverse group of people when you went down to the Gold Dome?
It was really great because we have a diverse Senate. In order to get it passed, we had to talk to people of different parties, different races, and believe me, and genders, and agendas as well. So it was difficult without the diversity of the people who were supporting us, and we had our lady on the end down there that was definitely working with all of the Republicans, and she knew them very well, and they respected her a lot. So that helped in the Senate, and as well as everybody who came up, because they knew that it wasn't just one voice. And then I had 2 other senators who were fighting against it, and they were my colleagues, and they were doing everything to stop it. So I had to fight with everyone, even in my own party, even people who actually represented a portion of the area that we were trying to change. But the people made a choice, and now we have a great city, and it's getting greater every year.
5 years old, 5 years old. So I've got to get to you, Ms. Moore. So tell us a little bit about going down there to the Capitol and how important it was to be able to relate to the Republicans and anybody else with this diversity.
Well, Lazarus is real. Okay, so I'm kind of like the fly in the buttermilk. My background is that I've been in government most of my life as a public servant. Actually retired from Fulton County after 25 years. And then I went into municipal government in terms of managing cities. So, understanding the importance that government is local, is the best government for you, is my heart. So as you know, politics can be rough. And any time you go under the Gold Dome, it can be really heated. And Roger and Senator James had done a wonderful job in trying to move this bill through. But everybody has their own interests. And to be honest with you, my party really wasn't interested, right? They were like, let them handle it. We don't have a dog in this fight. And we'll just stay out of this altogether. Well, I live here. And so being a part and being a member of my party, I had to make a case to my party to say, look, I need for you guys to go beyond just our interests of North Fulton, but I need for you to care about me, and I need for you to care about us, and I need for you to care about the citizens of the city of South Fulton in the future, because we're people too. And we want local government just like Milton, just like Johns Creek, just like everybody else that incorporates, give us the opportunity. And so they were open, they were willing. And so I think for me, the moment, though, was when the bill died. And it was dead. And the session was like over, they said. And I really just, Lazarus, I just laid at the altar, right? And said, guys, please, will you? I mean, we've tried to do this before. Will you resurrect this bill? And believe it or not, they did. And it gave us a whole new life. And we were, Roger, Senator James, and us, and everybody up here, it was full throttle for us. Diversity does matter. It takes a bipartisan effort. Republicans now control the majority of the numbers under the Gold Dome. So you can't get anything through unless they buy into it. But it actually took the Democrats to actually have the idea to push it through. And it took us on the other end to make sure that it got through. And that was our part. And so it took both parties working together. But I can tell you I gave 1.5 years of my life. I hadn't spent that much time with my party in a long time. And I just one thing, and I'm going to leave it at that. There's a thing called the rope, right? And Senator James is so right because she really caught hell for actually standing with me on the Senate side with Republicans. I mean, they really racked her under the bush simply because she was fighting for us. And they didn't want her to toe that line because she was willing to work with Republicans to create this city. But the rope is where you have to call people out of the chamber and get them to vote for your bill. So I spent like a whole week, all day long, standing at the rope, calling out Republicans one by one and saying, when this comes to the floor, are you going to vote? Are you with me or are you not with me? And that was probably the most tedious part of it. And of course, Ms. James, Senator James would be out there. I'm like, get him, send him the card. Make him come out. Tell Camilla's out here, right? So, but diversity really makes a difference. And needless to say, ma'am, we had 5,000 people on the ground for cityhood. These signs here, we had 60,000. Throughout this footprint. We had 20,000 citizens who registered to either knock on doors, hand out newsletters, or hand out papers. That's the community that made the city. That was the diversity. Black, white, Republican, Democrat, independents, you name it. We had a ground troop of about 20,000 people. That was the diversity that made it happen.
Okay, I want to get to some of the others. So Mr. Grimes, you've got the microphone. Let's get you that same question for you.
For me, it was really critical. It was critical early to understand diversity because a lot of times people think our community is monolithic. We're all black, different shades of black, but we couldn't be more different than the primary colors. First instance, I got involved. A gentleman by the name of Benny Crane came out to our subdivision and did a presentation on cityhood. And it was very passionate, it was very emotional, it pulled you in, but that's not how you communicate with my peer group. We want to see data, we want to see metrics, we want to see facts. And so talking with him to understand there are certain places in this city where I'm going to go where I can't go because I don't translate well. I'm not third generation Atlanta. I can't talk about Tri-Cities, so I'm not going to resonate well in there. I saw that real quick talking with the unions. We had an event for them, catered the food, and it was best case scenario, it was hyper condescending, but realistically it was just flat out disrespectful. And it's not because of me or them, it's just diversity. In those types of forums, South Fulton United, Benny Crane, they translated better. And then for folks who like to say, okay, great, but show me the numbers, show me the money. You say we can afford the city. They want to see data, not necessarily hear the sermon. So that was the first step of really understanding how diversity matters within the black community, and you have to embrace it and service the different comprehension styles. The second one actually came from Roger Bruce. I'm gonna give him his flowers right now. He is still a great mentor for me. And one of the things he told me, and he probably told everybody this, but he might have just told me this. But he gave this story about playing baseball. And I'm glad it was just me then. And he was like, look, young brother, everybody has to play a position. And if you're on first base, if you're supposed to be the first baseman, and you're out there trying to catch fly balls, and you're out here trying to do other things, what's going to happen when somebody tries to throw the ball to first base? And so within that diversity is understanding that you have to play your part. Understanding within this whole movement, it's more than one person, it takes more than one person. And so I kind of resisted that a little bit because, you know, Generation Things, that is a slick way of telling me to stay in my lane. But he was right. Everybody had to play their part. Everyone played it well, Republicans, Democrats, independents. But diversity, not just being different, but respecting those differences and allowing people to go where their skills could shine, often required times where I took a back seat to people. And then there were some people who had been in the community 30, 40 years. They would call me and say, hey, for this group, I think you should go and speak because I think the way you communicate it translates a little better. So diversity of generations, diversity of minds, people who've lived in the area for a while, some who haven't. Ms. Dove, I'll go to you now for that question on diversity.
Diversity is important. By the time they wrote me in, it was all about schools. I was the PTA president and working with Chris Lennon, who was the SGC president at that time. And we had this knack to bring parents into Westlake really quickly. So we were able to do that and then have a presentation, and I've been knocking on doors ever since. And with that, it was really important for me as a parent and as a mom to say, look, this is something that my children will be able to benefit from, to see their communities. And, you know, we like swimming pools and chess, and I like to track, and I started envisioning exactly what that looks like. So diversity also included moms and dads who didn't have the time to be down at the Capitol, who were also concerned about making sure that they had a city that they knew they could thrive in.
That's interesting because you keep thinking, each one of you is bringing up somebody a little different. Councilman Sebastian, let's talk about your role back then with diversity.
Well, I was that 6'6" guy who spoke funny who showed up one day. All about, and as an adopted American, I was a little bit insulted by the taxation without representation thing. So I went to work. I didn't know any of these folks up here. But for me, it was the basic premise that if you're going to be taking my tax dollars, I need to vote for you. And so I went to work. I met Roger. I met everyone up here during that process. And quite frankly, I didn't even think that I would end up being the council person. The diversity was very important, obviously, for me, because I think it gave others who are in our community who may not have been born here the sense that you live here and you have as much right to ownership as anyone else. So I am just floored that I got to meet all these great people. I was just a corporate guy going to work every day, coming back home before I was told, you don't vote for the people who use your tax money. And so I found it even ironic that I'm sitting next to Senator James because I ended up being her campaign manager after the cityhood movement, and I don't seem to be able to get away from her. But I love her dearly. But I also remembered that one night we were down at the Capitol, and this probably is a story that's not told very often. And Senator James came out of the chamber, and she was so distraught, and they were just hammering her inside the chamber. And no sooner than she came out of the chamber, one of her Senate colleagues came out, and this man was screaming at the senator. And I looked across, and I said, no, I'm not having that. So I went and I placed my body in between him and her. And at that point, I said, am I going to get arrested here tonight? Because this is not happening. But, there were other folks who were there from our team, and they quickly, surrounded us. And, he was really being disrespectful to our senator. And that night I saw firsthand some of the things that she went through, especially on the Senate side. So even, when it was all said and done, I had to support her even beyond just the cityhood movement, because I saw what she went through, not only that night, but other nights as we went and tried to get this bill done. And the Lazarus bill, I'd said to Sister Camilla that day when the bill failed in committee, and she came in the hallway and said, what should we do? My answer was, we're going to fight until the last person drops. So that's still my attitude towards our city, to fight for it. So I'm here as one diverse person by my foreign tongue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I love these stories. I know we've had a few of you describe some of the meetings, but are there some others of you who want to describe the meetings that you had, the discussions, heated, lively, lighthearted, maybe, ugly?
Yeah. Well, this Lazarus bill, I think we want to talk about that just a little bit, if I could. And she was talking about the ropes. You have the ropes on the House side, ropes on the Senate side. And Camilla and another gentleman came to see me. And Camilla said, you don't remember me, but, I used to be down in, what city was that, Union City? She was married to the former mayor down there. And I said, I remember you. You're a Republican. And she said, yeah, and I'm here to help you try to get this bill passed again. And I said, okay. If you remember that conversation at the ropes? And so typically if a bill is dead, it's dead. And but she said, let's go talk to the senator where the committee was looking at it. So we went, we talked to him, and he said, I was surprised that it died, but it died because one of your Republican senators, one of your Democratic senators wouldn't vote for it. And it was only one vote that we needed for it to pass. And she would not vote for it. She just sat there. She said, I'm not going to do it. And so he said, well, let's just change a couple of words in it, and we'll bring it back. And remember that conversation? He said, we'll bring it back, and we'll vote on it again. I had never seen that done in the years that I had been down there. So he called.
My grandchildren too, by the way.
So he called a committee meeting, and apparently he had talked to everybody except that one senator that wouldn't vote the last time, and said, we're going to bring this bill back, and we're going to pass it. So we're sitting there, and I'm thinking I had to go speak and give another speech and talk it up and do all this other stuff. That was the shortest committee meeting I had ever seen. It was all of 30 seconds. It was 30 seconds. He went in, he said, do we have a motion? We didn't even talk about what the bill was. He said, do we have a motion? One of them said, so moved. And somebody else, second. Take a vote. That was it. And that other senator was sitting there like, what the?
What just happened?
What just happened? And that's how that bill, am I describing it correctly? That's how it happened. So really what it took, to your point about diversity, it took Democrats, Republicans, men, women, everybody saying we wanted this to happen, and it worked. And it went very well.
And while this was going on in the General Assembly, there was a community fraction going on too, because there were several fractions saying, okay, well, if it gets through the General Assembly, we're going to kill it on the ground. And so that's where the various groups came in. South Fulton United was the mother of all of the organizations, because they were the one that commissioned the feasibility study, because we had to show that we were viable. And Benny Crane is the person who got me involved in cityhood and started South Fulton United. When the bill failed the first year, then Coalition South Fulton Now was formed. And Coalition South Fulton Now, their goal was to educate residents from a larger scope. So we pulled in the tax commissioner and Kevin Grimes and I worked heavily in that group, and he was one of the leaders of that group. We pulled in the Fulton County Tax Commissioner. We would get large venues like the churches, and we would pack the churches like 100 and 200 residents. And our focus was really data driven, trying to show people why it was more feasible for us to become a city. Then there was a group called Go South Fulton Now. Go South Fulton Now was solely formed to fight off the annexations, because while we were going through this process, there was City of Atlanta aggressively trying to annex the most prized possessions of the city. So I was involved in that group too, and our sole role in that group was to fight annexations off, to prove they were illegal and fight them off. And then there was a group called Protecting Our Communities in Schools. And that was the group that Kimberly Dove and Councilmember Rowell and Demita Chapman, and also I worked in that group too. And we actually went door to door, knocking on doors, getting people to sign affidavits and petitions to remove their names from this petition, saying that they wanted to annex. Because one of the rules is that in order to annex, you had to have 60% of the neighborhood signatures to make the petition legal. So we had to get that 60% below that magic number, and we had to knock on doors and show and tell people how it was important to become a city and not be annexed. They were trying to take out schools. We would have had empty buildings. We would have had to pay over $50 million to rebuild schools. But while we were waiting on that, our schools would have been overcrowded. It was a mess. And then you had the People's Campaign,
which was the largest. Go ahead and give us that cue. Go ahead and give us our. Go ahead.
You had the People's Campaign that came into existence once that bill came out of the General Assembly, and you had to have that strong grassroots campaign that was led by Camilla Moore, J.C. Sebastian, and then she said, "Give her that cue."
Camilla.
Yeah. The funny part,
Camilla.
though, what they don't. Before,
Hold on, Camilla.
but I just want to tell the governor's conversation though before we get to that. So after the bill, our biggest battle was to make sure that this vote did not come up during the primary, which would have been in May. I mean, we needed time to take on.
So it's around this time of the year.
Right. Because we knew we had to take on the city of Atlanta and Reed. And I never forget was that I would go to the Capitol and Mayor Reed would be leaving and I would be coming. Okay? Because we were both trying to get our agendas across. And I never forget when Governor Deal said, "This is how it's going to go down. You're going to have to fight it out in the street. I'm gonna sign the bill, but you are going to have to take on Atlanta. If y'all want it, you're going to have to fight it out in the street." And so then I turned to the meeting, and we had to fight it out in the street.
Well, look, I heard Councilwoman Willis, but she forgot one group, and that was the Concerned Citizens of South Fulton. That was the first group with Kasim Reed, Benny Crane, Hale Reed, Storm Mitchell, myself, Senator Donzella James was down on the Congress, is the World Congress Center, on College Park in 2005. And Kasim Reed then was the senator, is that correct? And he wanted to create the city. Then we had the big meeting over at Enon Church. And I say it was packed. And in the middle of the road, he flip-flopped. Then it was Commissioner Bill Edwards. And I asked the question, and I said it just like this: "Where in the hell did y'all flip-flop in the middle of the road?" Well, they explained it. And it was a fight. Then we stopped, but we never stopped fighting. And we went under the People's Campaign. We had to fight the former Keisha Lance Bottoms. And I remember going down to City Hall, me and Kim Dove, and it was a group of us.
and it was just a fight. And sometime you can go back to the YouTubes, Miss Lynn's Bottoms would get real nasty with us. And I remember at one meeting she asked me, she asked a question, and I said, I want to know what's your agenda. And she said, what's your agenda? And she went on and she said, well, I'm going to pray. And I said, I'm going to pray too, but we're going to come back. But it was a group. And when we got under the people's protecting the schools, that was a fight. Because right now, people really don't even know. Jewel Johnson was a part of that, her and Ms. Vanjie Watkins. And we went to court day in and day out, but we never gave up.
And we're glad you did. We're glad you never gave up. I want, before we lose any time here, because I still want to get into some things. One of the things the video got into was all the services that were needed to take place. What services did the county provide, and what level, and how did you feel about cityhood and how those things would come into play? Do you want to go with that, Ms. Willis?
Yes. So the service provided all of our municipal services. As Representative Roger Bruce stated in the video, Senator Schaefer created what you call special service districts, where you had the North and the South Special Service District, and you paid into these districts, and that is what funded our municipal service, our fire, our police, our parks, code enforcement. Everything that we have under our municipal service that we're governing now is what unincorporated. We were as unincorporated as the South Special Service District, and the county commission governed that. And that what was unfortunate is at the time we only had one commissioner who lived in this area, and then you had 6 other commissioners making decisions on the services, the level of services, and the resources we were receiving. And so that was one of the reasons we decided it was best for us to become a city. That was one of the reasons.
Yeah, I know, Representative Bruce, that because I was down at the Capitol, that the whole Fulton industrial area was a big issue during all of this. So talk a little bit about how all of that came about and what happened.
Yeah, one of the challenges was people said that we didn't have the financial resources to create our city because we didn't have access to Fulton Industrial. And the reason that we didn't have access was because there was a law passed 50 years ago, whatever it was, that said that that area could not be annexed into any city. They didn't want to be bothered with anybody back then, and they really thought that when Maynard Jackson was about to become mayor, that they were going to get annexed into Atlanta, and they didn't want that. So we had to, I had to introduce legislation to repeal that. It was a constitutional amendment, actually. We had to repeal the constitutional amendment saying that that area could be annexed, but we had to do it in conjunction with creating the city of South Fulton because we didn't want to get that removed and then Atlanta got it before the city of South Fulton could get it. So we tied the two bills together, and that if one passed, then the other one would pass. That's how we tied it together. And what ended up happening is that we ran out of time. And in running out of time, we created the city, but we didn't get the other bill passed. So we had to go back the following session and get that bill passed, which we did do. And after it went to court is what happened. It went to court, and the judge says that the constitutional amendment that had been created 50 years ago was unconstitutional and illegal, and threw it out. And so we went back and we grabbed it. And it brought $12 million additional dollars to the city by us being able to do that.
And so it's definitely been a process. I wanted to ask you, Senator James, about some more of what you went through. Now, you called it the ropes, but I want people to know they're velvet ropes. So they're not, you know, they're supposed to be nice ropes, but they can get pretty ugly. Talk a little bit about your experiences, again, with all of this process, especially having to go back and back on this.
Well, truly, it was not easy, and it was not nice. And I have the battle scars to prove it. Every day you heard from our councilman, Sebastian, who said that one of our own legislators came out and screamed at me, a Democrat. However, had my 6'6" friend had not stepped in, I know karate, crazy, and all of that. I was not going to allow that. So we did, but he did get with Schaefer, and when Schaefer put his bill in, he did not do it to help us. He thought that Sandy Springs and all of the other tax dollars was coming down and helping South Fulton area. So he thought that it would take away from us. I was working with these people, and I knew exactly his intent. But I knew that he was wrong. And thank goodness he was wrong, and it helped us to get money once we became a city. Those services came to us. So sometimes we had to be quiet even when we knew the truth. And we had to use just different forms. I went, what most of them don't know is, yeah, they may have talked to different senators and different parties, and I went and sat with almost every single senator and talked to them, and the governor and the lieutenant governor and all of them. I sat down, I took time out to talk to them and find out where they were. Now then they saw that many of the residents was coming and sitting and meeting with them, and all of a sudden they said, this is hot stuff. So we can use this to make them vote with us on some bills that they won't vote on. And so they tried to twist my arm. But like Jose Williams used to say,
but they were good bills, though.
Unbossed.
They were good bills.
It was just some things I just could not agree with. So it delayed us a whole year as a result of that.
Yeah, I know how hard you guys work. I'm down there at the Capitol with you, and I know all the ins and outs and the surprises that have to come in. I got to get down to Miss Dove. You're now on the school board. You were, as you mentioned, on the PTA back when all of this was going on. But so talk a little bit about your motivation and how important cityhood was, the area schools, and all of the challenges that happened during that time. Because, you know, those of us who are residents were real worried about the schools. I'm a Girl Scout leader, as you know, and we didn't even know how we were going to handle that if we lost some of the schools we're using where our Girl Scouts were coming from.
You know, one of the things that was really interesting during that time was that it galvanized everyone around education. So the moment everyone thought our schools in South Fulton was failing, let them say they were taking our schools away. Everyone jumped up immediately to fight annexation, and that's what brought us there. It was the threat. And I know for me, it was several things, but I recall my son saying, he went to Westlake as well, Mom, I plan to go to graduate school, but I don't want a certain high school system on my high school application because of some past failings of that school district. And I thought, man, like, you're really forward thinking about what this looks like. And I got involved. I'm like, okay, well, we have to do something. And together with Chris Lennon, we were able to get 500 parents in Westlake in about 24 hours. And that was when, the Atlanta cheating scandal was going on and all of those things. So then there was concern about our schools then and what would happen. And then the cool thing is that I was just a mom and a parent on PTA president, and board member and president Linda Bryant had the school system do presentations about how it would financially impact us, what that would do and where those students would go. So it was really interesting, and I would do it all over again. Over again.
Councilman Sebastian, I saw you shaking your head. Anything you want to add to that?
As a matter of fact, yes, thank you. I remember I was around the table when we brought all the groups together at one point, including the group Protecting Our Schools and Communities. And we were explaining to that group that the best way to protect those schools was to form the city and lock the borders. And so I remember Councilwoman Royal recognizing you. She was at the table, and we had that conversation, and she understood and bought in. And then after that, we got some new people to fight with. So again, talk about the diversity. Again, there were people that were coming from all sectors. I know for me, as having a background in analytics, what was important to me was whether the city could work. And, the feasibility study that we got out of our efforts on South Fulton United, it was key to me. Because, I'm accustomed to read statistics and math book, and that book was not too large. It was about 30 pages, so I ate it up. And, I remember thinking, this is a no-brainer. I just continued to see all the reasons why we should have created the city of South Fulton, and I haven't changed my mind yet.
Mr. Grimes, we haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, so I'm cursed with an almost photographic memory.
Oh, I wish I had that, though.
I will tell you, from my perspective and my experience, that was the single hardest fight that I was a part of, and that was getting the schools on board. And I was at that meeting as well, and I will tell you that everyone who was working with schools or for the schools, including then school board member Linda Bryant, their whole position was neutral. We're staying out of it. That was all of them. But it took a whole lot of effort to explain that if you annex into the city of Atlanta, so be it, God bless it. There's a lot of good reasons to go to the city of Atlanta. However, if you go into the city of Atlanta, your children will go to Thurl High School. Now then Mayor Kasim Reed was at the Baptist Church, and he said that if you guys annex, Westlake will come with us, right? And because it was Kasim Reed, and at the time people were up for re-election, no one wanted to correct that. And I remember being the person who did. So once that happened, that's when Linda Bryant and the school board started putting out information saying that the Westlake High School stays in the footprint of Fulton County. If you annex, the school doesn't go. And that was the turning point. And I will say that in my experience, the school issue was the single issue that kind of flipped the Sandtown community, because there were people who did not have children in school, but they understood the impact and the value. And not that Thurl's bad, because Thurl's an excellent school. It's just not Westlake.
And it was different. People were going to have to move their kids and the whole bit. And,
yep.
And we've seen generations, if you had somebody go through grade school, middle school, then they wanted the same high school. I want to move along a little bit with this question on those of you who live in South Fulton now, in what ways would you describe that things are better now than they were prior to it becoming a city? Who wants to take that?
Well, I can go first. First of all, one of the things that I experienced as a new resident back in 2006, some mischievous kids came through my subdivision. We were like the 5th or 6th home in my community, and the pellet painted my front door. I thought it was real shots, but it was pellet guns. And so we called the police. No police ever came. And so that was my first encounter with trying to figure out, where do I live and who serves this area? Right now, there's a police precinct that's a half a mile from my house. It's one of the things that when we were going through our cityhood movement, we talked about decentralizing the police so that we can have better response times. And we're not perfect yet, but we have vastly improved from where we were. So that's just one of the things. And as a city, we're doing a lot of investment in our parks and so on. Some of our parks have not been touched since Bill Edwards was commissioner, right? And we are on the way to doing improvements in most of our parks right now. So, along with a host of other things, but I'll leave some of the things for some of the other folks to talk about.
I would say, having been in government and been in Fulton County for 25 years and managing cities, what I found out to be true is your public safety, that is fire and police. Even though they may be the largest part of your budget, they are the most important. So for me personally, before, similar to him, if I called the police, Fulton County, I didn't know where they were coming from. But now, I see the police all the time. I see the fire trucks. If an elderly person has an issue, the response time, what's crucial to life and death for us as taxpayers, how long it takes the police to get there, and how long did it take to fire. With the county, you had to wonder. With the city, we now know. And then we have closer accountability. And so great fire department, great police department, and great response time, that's the difference in terms of local service for me.
And I would say, let's talk about some of the financial benefits of it. We were yielding in an unincorporated, in the special service district tax fund, between $18 to $20 million in local option sales tax. And that money was going in our special district tax fund, but it wasn't necessarily coming back to this community. And so now we are in control of that money. We weren't getting franchise fees because we weren't a city. That was millions of dollars. Now that we are a city, we can yield that type of money. Code enforcement. We have better accountability with code enforcement. When I became a council member, we did not have certain policies on the books to enforce code like we should have. The blighted properties, where you see us demolishing blighted property and holding property owners more accountable. When we were a county, they didn't have any of those policies on the books. They would say they would cite people for code enforcement issues, but you never heard any follow-up. You never saw any houses torn down. You never saw anything come out of those codes. We have an anti-blight tax now, that where we can hold people accountable for blighted property and not bringing their blighted property into compliance. So as a city, we're able to yield more revenue because we're a city. We can get franchise fees. We got our local option sales tax coming to our city now that we govern. And so we have local control. And we have local control by people who live here and who govern us now, and who the residents can hold accountable.
I just want to make one statement, and this may give people a sense of how the amount of money that we have in our community in terms of what's available for us for services. The last full budget in 2016 on the Fulton County was $55 million. Our general fund for this past budget year, I think it was $92 million. We have not expanded the business base that much, and yes, we've had some rise in property values and so on. But if you consider going from 55 to $90 million roughly, then you could see, just from those two numbers, all of the money that we were leaving on the table for several years.
Senator James?
Well, even before we became a city, you wanted to know, what do I see differently? Well, first of all our tax dollars seem to be going to the unincorporated, and it was a tradition that the monies went to the north, even though we did have a couple of South Fulton area commissioners, but they didn't have enough votes. So everything went to the north and not to the south. So of course we were fighting for years to make this stop, and after it did not happen, uh, that's when we went along with, we need to control our own destiny. We need to have a city of our own. And so now you've heard about the improvements in services and in franchise fees and other monies, but we wouldn't have had that had we not stuck together and knew that we better take our money and put it in our city for local control and have local people who we can go to that represent us instead of people on the other side of town.
Ms. Dove, I think you wanted to say something.
I did. One of the things that the services, I'm really bright, so I like the lights. I like the fact that I could go to my council people and tell them about the new street lights that are coming out. During the pandemic, most of the children didn't have anywhere to play, and they were using the streets for the basketball court. So simple things like that to help our teenagers, that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about the upcoming renovations we're doing to our parks and recs, and hopefully we can get in some teenage programs to help divert some of our children. So that's what I'm really excited about.
Okay, so I'm told we better kind of wrap up. So I got a quick question for everybody. Just kind of maybe a little sappy question. Would you do it all over again? So let's start on this end. Let's start on this end. Would you do it again?
Yes, with the 20,000 people who put their foots on the ground. And just let me say, my closing remarks is, this has been a journey. We're not perfect, but, I wouldn't be sitting here tonight if it wasn't for you. It took all of us diverse. It took all of us together. It took all of us who had a vision to become a city, and it took all of us working together and on the ground. And so, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be the chairman of the transition team and the person who led you as an army to get this done. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Grimes, would you do it again? And I got to ask, just maybe one thing that you each one would like to see happen in the future.
All right. So for me, and let me do it this way. Prior to starting the city, if you ask people about government, they would say, government is slow and government is inefficient, right? That's the opinion of government. So when you form a city, if you form a city and the culture and attitude is, this is how all the other cities do it, so this is how we're going to do it, well, then you're destined to be slow and inefficient as well. So for me, I would say the one thing I would change is from time to time, or a little more often, I would rather see us be a little more daring, a little more cutting edge, and being that one city that's not doing what every city's doing. Because if those cities are doing it, it might be still inefficient. And I'll give you a quick example. Partnering with the schools. So that's a slippery slope because municipalities do not get involved with cities, right? Get involved with schools. But we've partnered with the schools with traffic cameras. That is an example of our municipality partnering with the schools to move the needle for both the city and the schools. I would like to see our city, and I'm biased, I have an 8-year-old son, but I would like to see the city find more of those ways where maybe we're the only city who are doing these certain things with the schools.
Ms. Chapman? They'll pull it up.
and I am going to continue on fighting for the city of South Fulton.
I would do it again, absolutely, for all the reasons that everybody said that we did it. Those reasons were valid. They were the right thing to do. If I had to look at something different, I think that the education should have continued to set the expectations for what was going to happen and how fast it would happen and what kind of things you have to go through, because there are people that, you know, we've only been around for 5 years. Atlanta's been around for, what, 100 years or whatever, and they're still trying to figure some things out too. Every city, you know, when we're at the Capitol, Don Zella knows on from the Senate side, every single day of the session, somebody introduces a bill to make some sort of an amendment to their charter. Every day. And, you know, so I think that was one of the things that we didn't do that we should have done, is to continue the education so that people would have reasonable expectations of how fast things could happen. I know one of the things that I heard over and over and over again was our taxes are going to go up if we create this city. And they weren't going to go up from creating the city, because basically all we were doing is saying we're going to take the money that we were given to the county and use it for the city. And in addition to that, we were going to get money that we weren't getting because we were not a city. And then what happened is that at the same time all of that was going on, there was an effort also to get the banks and other lending institutions to properly value the houses on the south side, because our houses were totally undervalued at the time. Same house, same amenities, everything, for less. So after going to court and we won those battles, our property values started to go up. And as a result of the property values going up, people's taxes went up accordingly, and they thought that that was because we created the city. But it wasn't. It was because we increased the property values. And to my knowledge, and the council people can attest to this, I don't know that we've gone up on taxes, have we, at all? I didn't think so. And so I think the education process is what's missing.
Yes, I would do it again. I just would probably change some things, like do it a little sooner and strengthen the diversity from the beginning, because way back in 2000, we had so many people meeting weekly over at the church across the street from Waccamaw Park. And Benny Crane, I heard that name, he was part of it, and Mr. Holman, what was his name? Edward Holman, and his wife, and my late husband, and Jackie Barrett, and, you know, just names you probably know, but we fought very hard. And in 2002, I left the Senate. At that time, I thought we were going to have a city, and it would have had all of South Fulton Parkway, the Spur 14 up at Old National, because Union City and the other cities had not annexed us at that point. And then this city wanted to name themselves RICO, that's now Chattahoochee Hills. They were fighting to get out of that group. And when Kasim Reed came and replaced me, because I was gone for 8 years, unfortunately, that's when Kasim decided to go with Chattahoochee Hills. And they became a city, and the rest of the South Fulton effort that we had fought for just got thrown to the side until it came back again. Once I came back to the Senate, it came back again. So I was glad to help champion on the Senate side. Even though it wasn't easy, I'd do it again.
Thank you.
For me, it was a no-brainer, and yes, I would do it again, as I said. The one thing that I think we could have done better is that groups like South Fulton United and the others that in essence broke up People's Campaign, we should have remained together and found a way to continue to educate the population accordingly, because even now I see a lot of stuff on social media and I shake my head and I say, these folks, they don't have it. So I really wish we had continued that process, but absolutely, I would do it again.
Thank you.
Absolutely, I would do it again. Local control is a powerful, tool. What I would want to see or change is, again, as Ms. Moore said, and as Councilmember Sebastian said, the people who helped fight on the ground, the 5 groups who were involved with all of the residents, I wish that those residents would come back and help us build our city, because they know what we went through to get here. And we don't need to continue to allow people who were not in the trenches tear us apart, cause division, and tear the city down. So if you hear me, please come back, engage, and continue to help us build the city, because you know what we went through to get here.
Ms. Duff.
Well, they saved the best for last. I don't have anything new. I would do it again. And the one thing I think I'm gonna leave with this. It's just like any race, and just like any race, you have people in the beginning, you have people in the middle, and you have people that are in the end. All of those individuals who may not be here today or on the video, there were thousands of people supporting this effort. And with thousands, you can do a lot. And that's because we all came together for a common place. I would love to see that in our schools. Come together for our students, and that's all I'm going to say.
All right, well, let's hear it for this panel, for these people who we owe a debt of gratitude for all they did to create the city of South Fulton, and those who are not here on this stage who fought for it. You guys truly are the heroes of cityhood. We appreciate you, and when you think about it, you're our city founding mothers and fathers. How about that? To make you feel old. I know you guys are going to watch the rest from down here, but thank you so much. And once again, let's give them a round of applause. All right, we're wrapping up our program, but we do have a few things that we want to get to. And while they are taking their seats, I would be remiss if I didn't say, don't forget on Monday, early voting begins. Tell people, pass the word. Anybody who doesn't know that should know. As you can see, representation matters. It really does. And so these are the people who've been fighting for you, and you need to know who they are, and the others who are on the ballot, up and down the ballot, not just at the top of the ballot. So that is my public service announcement for now. It is no secret that tonight's theme portrays that South Fulton as a city is on the rise. We indeed are ascending as the premier South Side city. Tonight, we are honored to have some special guests to help recognize the importance of that journey, and when we thought of who would best be able to do that, and you've heard about Westlake a lot on this program, on the stage tonight, the Westlake High School Choir instantly came to mind. True to form, they are representing our city well during an exciting competition season, so we wish them well. Because of that schedule, they couldn't be here in person with us, but again, through the magic of video, the choir can inspire us through a song. So please look at the screens and welcome Westlake High School Choir as they help us rise up.
Broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up in spite of the ache, I'll rise up and I'll do it we have each other, and for that we have each other. We will rise, we will rise, we will rise. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the waves, I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll rise 1,000 times again. You are
Let's hear it for Westlake High School, the choir. We wish them well as they're in their competition season. Just a few announcements as we wrap up this wonderful evening. We need to thank a few people. Thanks to the Southern Strings Symphonia, which has their spring concert coming up next Thursday. They were out in the hallway. Their concert next Thursday, May 5th. At 7:30 right here on this very stage. The event is free and open to the public, no registration needed. Thanks also to Chief Tiffany Moore, who is also known as apparently Chief Tiffmo, and her mother, Van Anderson, for the wonderful spread awaiting us in the lobby. Thanks to the City of South Fulton Department of Communications and External Affairs and the Department of Parks and Recreation and Cultural Affairs for putting on this spectacular event tonight. They will continue the anniversary celebration with a family fun day this Sunday from noon until 8:30 p.m. This Saturday, it says Sunday, and I knew it was Saturday, so I should have caught that. This Saturday at Wolf Creek Amphitheater. This Saturday, noon to 8:30. There will be kids, rides. There will be kids. Okay, I've actually read that. There will be rides, games, an art show, a car show, an evening concert, and more. Everyone is invited to that celebration. And thanks to you for being here tonight, of course, and supporting us throughout the year. Find out more about South Fulton by visiting cityofsouthfultonga.gov. And that as we wrap things up, we want to let you know that we want to give you a little piece of cake. So we invite you to mingle out in the lobby, continue tonight's celebration in the lobby. We have birthday cupcakes and more for you to enjoy. And one more thing. Can we all just sing happy birthday to the City of South Fulton? And so join me in singing that. And I want to tell you that I'm not going to keep the microphone close to me. No, don't do it. The logo. Oh, we missed the logo. I did. I had so many pages that I must have missed that. Oh, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So we're going to get this. So as we rise up, we want to talk about the logo for South Fulton. It's definitely on an upward trajectory, climbing to bigger and better things. For us, RISE stands for resilience, inclusion, strength, and expertise, all the traits that help define the city. So to place focus on those areas, city staff has developed a new corporate style logo that will become South Fulton's symbol and brand marker. And let's see us unveil it a little bit of the time. So first we're going to have the regular seal. The current seal will be elevated to its rightful place on official documents and other official purposes. It's my sincere privilege to help unveil South Fulton's new logo. So let's have a little fun. Remove one logo at a time. Going to be up on the screen. And it's going to be in the order of the votes for these logos. So which got the lowest number of votes? So they were going to remove that one, okay? The next lowest, look at them, see what you think. Now we have the first two finalists, and any idea which the public chose? Okay, let's see. Go ahead and show us the new South Fulton logo. There we go. The people have spoken. That's the new logo that conveys a series of very important principles. The abstract design is a play on the S in South Fulton, but also represents upward movement and fluidity. And the colors echo the current city seal's colors, which symbolize blue, trust, power, success, and loyalty; green, nature, harmony, prosperity. And the Andrinka symbol within the O in South Fulton represents wisdom, ingenuity, and intelligence. Okay? So that is the new logo. Let's get a round of applause for that. You'll be seeing that everywhere. You are the first to see it. So let them eat cake now, huh? Before that, we're going to sing Happy Birthday, and I have just said I cannot sing, so I'm just not going to keep the microphone to my mouth as we sing, but let's start. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, South Fulton. Happy birthday to you. Hey, that wasn't bad. You guys are really good. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thanks so much for coming tonight. Have a good evening and enjoy your city.